Thank you all for joining. This is Mike Reed in San Francisco. I'm going to give just one more minute for folks to join, and then we'll begin. Okay, again, hello everybody. This is Mike in San Francisco. Real pleasure to have you all on the call today. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. I'm not going to stay on video, but just so that you know, I'm a real person in a real place. Here I am in my home. It's early morning here. My kids are not awake yet. The sun has risen and it's a foggy day in San Francisco. And if you have a keen ear, you can actually hear the foghorn in the background warning off the ships away from the bay. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to take my video off now. This particular webinar, I think, is going to be a really exciting opportunity for us to hear about progress that's being made across Stripe partner institutions. And we're going to hear from colleagues in Makerere, Stellenbosch, and UKZN in Durban. But let me first start by congratulating Africa on some epic sporting events this last week. As an Englishman, I was very sad that the English lost in the World Rugby Cup final to the South Africans. But congratulations there. And I'm also sad that I was beaten in the New York Marathon by some amazing Kenyan runners. I can't say it was a close thing. I think they beat me by well over 2 hours, but I did run in the New York Marathon this last week, and I wanted to congratulate the Kenyans for another epic success in marathon running. What an amazing spectacle that was. So this particular webinar will be discussing a couple of things. First of all, I want to apprise you of some new training materials that we have made available for you. And then secondly, as I mentioned before, I want to give the microphone, so to speak, over to colleagues from South Africa and Kampala. I also just want to take a moment to introduce you to one of my colleagues here at UCSF, who is helping us and is a real expert in HIV medical education, David Sears, who I'll introduce in a moment. As I mentioned before, this webinar is recorded, and you can access this recording at a later point at your leisure via the Stripe website, which is www.stripe.afrihealth.org. So without further ado, let me segue into just sharing with you some updates on resources that are available for your facilitators. The experience of colleagues in Uganda, in Zimbabwe, and in South Africa who are already doing this training and have been very helpful in helping us improve and tweak the resources is that training of the trainers is absolutely essential. And moreover, there's a huge imperative to ensure that our faculty, our trainers across our institutions are equipped to teach and educate interprofessionally. So with that in mind, we have produced some new resources that will be available on the Stripe website later this week that provide a resource for your trainers, for the faculty and educators that are participating in Stripe who are training your learners. And these resources include some specific objectives and goals that we hope the training will achieve for the facilitators, as well as some tips for the facilitators. In addition, the resource includes some pre and post evaluation instructions, recognizing that it has been a bumpy road in some places, capturing all of the pre and post evaluation data. And so we've tried to make that easier by including in this resource some nuts and bolts instructions. One of the things, as I mentioned, that is of crucial importance to Stripe is not only that we equip the next generation of HIV providers to be competent at delivering high quality team-based care, but also that we raise up a cohort of excellent educators. And so I just wanted to spend a moment articulating the goals and objectives that we see Stripe affording facilitators or educators. And this is important because I think you as the leaders in your institutions that are implementing this program need to recognize the potential that this intervention affords us for strengthening our colleagues' capacity to train interprofessionally. And certainly colleagues at HRSA in the US that are involved with interprofessional education highlight over and over again the importance of training the educators in order to ensure excellent team-based care. So, the goals and objectives that we've highlighted here, you can refer to on the Stripe website, but our goal is to ensure that facilitators are able to provide effective support and mentorship to learners, to deliver high team-based care, that they're able to teach learners across different cadres so that they're able to work in teams together effectively. And this is something that oftentimes educators are not familiar with. We often teach in our silos, but not across our silos. So developing the capacity to do this is of high import. Another important objective is to support learners to understand effectively how different types of healthcare workers should work together to deliver team-based care, and moreover, to equip learners to communicate effectively with patients, families, communities. If we're serious about delivering high quality education, understanding the importance of patients at the center of all of our services, and ensuring that our communication is patient centered and holistic is of key importance. And then finally, the other thing that we want facilitators to come away with is an appreciation of their role in educating learners on the importance of relationship building values and the principles of team dynamics to perform effectively in different team roles in delivering that kind of team-based care. In order to ensure that facilitators are achieving those goals and objectives, we are in the process of developing some facilitator self-evaluation tools, and these will also go up online in due course. And our hope is that those folks that deliver the training will be able to provide us feedback on what worked, what didn't work, how effective the Stripe training was in enabling them to teach interprofessionally, etc. And more details on this will follow in due course. In addition, the current tools that learners are using to evaluate the Stripe program do include some assessment of the facilitators, not in an individuated way. So we can't give individual facilitators feedback, but certainly our hope is that we can learn from the experience of the learners what works, what doesn't work, and how facilitators, educators can do a better job of teaching this content. I think one of the things that we've emphasized from the beginning, but I just want to go over again, and I see that my colleague Mirtu Razak is on the line from HRSA, something that Mirtu is the importance of the facilitator in playing that role in terms of strengthening interprofessional training. It's not just during the training that it's important, but preparing for the training, beginning the training, facilitating each module, facilitating the end of each module. All of that requires preparation and attention to detail. And so our hope is that by providing the resources that you'll be able to access through the Stripe website, your trainers will have some additional tools in order to do that. We recognize that we're asking a lot of facilitators, but our hope is that this will be a means, as I said before, to strengthen their capacity more generally to deliver high quality HIV care. Recognizing that for many facilitators, teaching in an interprofessional context is new. the sort of the pedagogy of that is different. We at UCSF have been fortunate enough to recruit an expert in our midst, an HIV provider by the name of David Sears, who is on hand to support the efforts here, and has done a lot of interprofessional education around HIV. I think David's on the line. Are you there, David?
Yes, that's correct. Greetings, everyone.
Hi, Dave. Great. Hi. David, I'm just curious, you have this slide up here. If you have any thoughts based on your experience running interprofessional groups, what things that you want to emphasize to this to the folks on the webinar right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the introduction, and just wanted to say that I'm extraordinarily excited to join the group, and think this is a absolutely wonderful opportunity, and happy to contribute however I can. So as Mike said, I'm an HIV provider, one of the HIV clinics at UCSF, and have a role in training medical students as well as pharmacists in HIV care, in addition to residents and HIV specialists as well. And I've been fortunate to participate in some interprofessional learning opportunities at our medical center, and have learned a lot along the way. As Mike said, it's very different when you're working with learners from different professions, and really really important to try to make sure that everybody's opinion is offered, valued, and plays a role in team-based management of patients. So we had put together this document to try to help the facilitators with some of the unique challenges that go into interprofessional learning and collaboration. So there are a couple of things within the document that I think are worth highlighting, and remembering that really some of the key goals of these modules is that they're interactive, is that everybody has a voice, and that they're enjoyable, which we know when people enjoy learning, they retain a lot more information. And overall, in addition to trying to improve the medical knowledge that the learners are getting from the modules, we're also really trying to tie everything back into that overarching goal of providing high quality interprofessional care. And providing high quality interprofessional care really starts with high quality interprofessional learning. And so a few things we wanted to highlight in terms of the interprofessional facilitation strategies within this document is that there are a number of educational strategies that can and really should be employed within interprofessional groups. So these are detailed within the document, but I think a few things worth highlighting right now, which are mentioned further in the document, is that the learning is really team-based. And so this is, as you all know, involves small groups working together. They're reading together, they're discussing the cases together, they're collaborating, and we're hoping to create an environment where each learner feels comfortable offering their professional opinions and is able to contribute to a collaborative care model that is patient-centered. So team-based learning is extraordinarily important, and trying to anchor all of our discussions in team-based learning is very important. That comes through small group discussions, that can come through large group discussions with the facilitator leading those discussions. And a couple of other strategies to highlight would be peer teaching as well. So we really want the nursing students, for example, sharing their expertise with the medical students, the clinical officers, and vice versa. So as much opportunity is there, or as much opportunity as we can foster for collaboration between these different learners and offering of their own opinions is key. We also hope to encourage through the modules reflection. So students and learners should be encouraged to share their experiences and reactions in discussions with the rest of the small group. We know that learners retain more knowledge if they're able to reflect on what they learned, reflect on what they didn't know, and discuss those things openly. That can lead to more long-term knowledge acquisition and changes in attitudes and practices, as opposed to just absorbing content in a non-reflective way. And then we also encourage through these modules, which many of you have seen, a lot of role plays. This is another educational strategy, I think also very important within interprofessional education, where a learner plays the role of a clinician or a patient, and that provides opportunities for learners to experience different roles, and they may be playing a role that is not the same as their profession. And so this role play can be helpful in understanding the unique challenges of other professions or other learners, and can put them in the shoes of somebody else or a patient, so to speak. So there's a little bit more information about these educational strategies within the document that we'll put up on the Stripe website. And I'd like to at least come back again to the idea of having that safe and open learning environment for all health professions. So this is a unique challenge within interprofessional education. And for me, with the small groups that I facilitated with interprofessional learners, really having a learning climate that's conducive to open discussion, that allows learners to be vulnerable, to express what they don't know and what they want to learn, is probably the foundation and one of the most important things of these small groups. If participants or learners don't feel that they can share their knowledge or openly ask questions or express vulnerability, it becomes much more challenging to learn. And this is incredibly important within the interprofessional learning, because as we all know, there are certain hierarchies that seem to exist within medicine, and many times small group sessions or interprofessional learning can be dominated by learners from one specific profession, or be dominated by individuals who have personalities where they may be more eager to share, whether they're potentially disruptive or overbearing, and that can really make it difficult for other learners to participate. So creating and fostering an open learning environment is really key. And we have, within this interprofessional document, we have some tips for facilitation and how to troubleshoot challenges that may come up. So I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, have worked in environments where you're teaching, and there may be a learner who presents a particular challenge to the group. It may be that somebody is exceedingly shy and unwilling to share. It may be somebody who is the exact opposite. And being able to troubleshoot those challenges as they come up will facilitate a learning atmosphere, an environment that is conducive to learners of all levels and learners of all professions. So we have some tips for how to facilitate that environment within the document as well. And so much of that really, of course, comes from the facilitators and being that positive role model for interprofessional collaboration. So really encouraging everybody to be diplomatic and to not, if there are disagreements within the learners or within the approach to how to care for this patient or how to offer professional advice, really to maintain neutrality and to not pick sides, and to make sure that as a facilitator that you role model that behavior that you want your learners to adopt. And so role modeling behavior that values the opinions of all learners and encourages everybody to share their own knowledge and contribute however they can to the case and to their own learning.
Fantastic. Thanks, David. That's great. And so just to kind of circle back on what you said, you gave some examples of sort of specific scenarios, challenging scenarios. I think we have a list of those kind of specific challenges in the document that will be on the website, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's correct.
Great. And just for everybody's reference, David, as I mentioned before, an expert in interprofessional education here in San Francisco is sort of on hand if you have specific challenges that you're facing, and can help troubleshoot those, obviously not in real time, but over email. And then David's also playing an important role here to help us improve the modules in an iterative manner moving forward. So thanks, David. Great to have you speak this morning. Appreciate your time. It's ironic that, and I'll just pause here, despite being in the tech city of San Francisco, actually David is on a phone line because he doesn't have an internet connection in his house. So that's why you don't see a video of his face right now, which is too bad. But thank you all the same.
This is a temporary moment, but thank you.
Yeah, you will. Let's segue now to hearing from the team in Makerere, who've done just a tremendous job and have been at the vanguard of Stripe efforts to date. Am I correct in thinking, Priscilla, that you'll be sharing some thoughts from Makerere? Is that correct? I want to check that you're able to hear me. And if not, perhaps you can tell me in the chat box who from Makerere is presenting this morning. Okay, I don't see Fred. I was wondering if it was Priscilla or maybe Martin, but I don't see Martin on the line. Priscilla, you should be able to speak now. Can you try again speaking? We're not able to hear your audio. Okay, so unfortunately not able to hear you. Here's what we'll do, Priscilla, if that's okay. We'll circle back to you later, and in the meantime, maybe you can work on seeing if your audio works. And I'm gonna, I hear a pause. Are you able to, is that you now? Or maybe Shadrach can speak instead, is that correct? If that's the case, then I'm happy to let you speak, Shadrach, if that's the best way moving forward. So let me unmute you. Shadrach, can I hear you?
Yes, Mike, I can hear you.
Perfect. So I have your slides here. I'm hoping that your team would be able to give us some brief summary of your experience in Uganda with the Stripe project. What's worked, what hasn't worked, successes, lessons learned, etc.
Okay, thank you so much, Mike. First of all, I would wish to apologize for the hiccup with the voice. Priscilla was supposed to present, but I think she has a problem with her laptop. Nevertheless, we work as a team, and I'm going to share the experience. So the picture we see is, these are representatives from the partner institutions who participated in the inaugural meeting. During the launch on 30th August, we had it at Makerere University, and we can see the representatives from PEPFAR, the first ladies from Kabale University, and they really liked the project. And then preparing for the entry meetings, we had to prepare for the trainings first with the entry meetings, and then we carried on a central TOT, and the image this way is one of the partner institutions, Zambia Hospital, the image on the left, then also Clark University. These were all entry meetings as we prepare for the central TOT. And the focal person are key in all these entry meetings. Yeah, Mike, can we proceed? Okay, rotation through the modules. Modules were assigned to facilitators in advance. Before the TOT, central TOT, the facilitator remained stationed at the given module. Learners were distributed to interprofessional groups and remained in these groups through the training. The learners rotated the different groups, and learning materials at the station were left. Rotation is done in a predefined direction. For example, module 1 to 3, 5 to 8, and Mike, are you there?
Yes.
Oh, Priscilla is on. Sorry, Priscilla, you can take.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can. Wonderful.
I'm so sorry about that, but thank you, Shadrach, for a good start.
Yeah, that was a great start. Thank you, Shadrach.
You're welcome.
Okay. So maybe just to add on to Shadrach's start is that the Education for Interprofessional HIV Care in Uganda program is hosted at Makerere University, and we collaborate with 5 other institutions. That's the Ministry of Health and 4 universities. 2 of these universities are within a 20-minute drive from Makerere here in Kampala. that is Nsambya Hospital, and Nsambya Hospital is affiliated with a nursing school, a laboratory school, and a postgraduate school. Then Clark also trains public health specialists. Then we have two other universities, Busitema, which is about 200 kilometers away, and Kabale University, who train medical students and postgraduates. So dealing with time management in the modules, we found this was a struggle for us at the start, and different facilitators took different time through these modules. Then we came up with the concept of average time, and we found the average time is about an hour and a few minutes. So we agree with the facilitators that show them reminders at 15-minute intervals. So here to the right, we see her displaying 45 minutes left to one of the groups. And we have observed this improve the time that's taken through the modules. So we go on to the next slide. So what has gone well for us? We have found that involving the heads of department and the deans right from the start, we had the dean attend and actually chair the inaugural meeting, and we have made communications through the deans for the different universities. This came in and made things easier for us because we later had these same deans and heads of departments authorize the students to take part in the trainings. And in particular in Kabale University, the dean actually sat in as a trainee in one of these sessions. And then also what we've had to do is involve the site coordinator and the student leader in module selection. So we have the 4 core modules that all the sites go through, and then we ask each of the individual sites which modules they think maybe would be more important for them. In the recent postgraduate training, for example, we found that they were very excited about the module for sepsis, which cuts across, and we shall be training on that. The group in internal medicine was very interested in the cryptococcal module. So that is how we engage them to determine which modules will be presented. We'll go to the next slide. And then the interprofessional nature of the training has been really appreciated. What happens is that at the end of these trainings, we get some verbal feedback in short interviews of say 5 minutes with different cadres of health workers. So what is clearly coming out is that these cadres are appreciating the role that every member brings in emphasizing certain aspects of the training. And we even have, for example, higher cadre health workers. We had specialists in some of the trainings, and we had one obstetrician say, I had a lot to learn from the midwife. And then in one of the modules, especially the one for the community approach, we involved real patients. So these patients were coached so they could present the scenario, but then they could be asked any form of questions. And because they had experienced this, they were able to make that training seem so real, and this was appreciated in our trainings. Then also having these collaborators coordinating, having coordinators at the sites has come in to our work, because most of the time we are based here in Kampala, but then for the sites that are several kilometers away, we found that it was more efficient to combine the entry meeting with the training meeting. And the 4 coordinators were very key in arranging this. And they continue the discussions at the sites even while we are away. And also we really recognize the support we have had from the institution at Makerere University, which is the Makerere University Joint AIDS Program that is hosting this training and managing the grant. So they've provided leadership and also financial support sometimes, and this has made our work easy. So some of the things that we have learned, or some of the challenges that we've observed is, for example, while we try to combine the entry meeting with the training, at the start we found that it caused undue delay. one thing is we underestimated how much time the entry meeting would take, because you're dealing with the administrators in the university who are very busy. So we adjusted this by moving the entry meeting to the afternoon just before the training, so that the following day we are able to start the training as early as 8 o'clock. And we found that we had more time to spend during the training. And then something else that we probably hadn't really seen coming was that the pre-test would take much longer than anticipated. And we find that some of the learners do not have computers, maybe have never owned one. A few do not have smartphones. And even for those that do, really their competence levels are different. But we've come around this by having many more members of the project team attend the training so that they can help these learners go around doing the pre and post test. And then also we found that to be able to cover a minimum of 8 modules at these trainings, it was not possible to go through a module for an entire 90 minutes or so. So we learned that we had to shorten the time to about an hour, and also with giving reminders about how much time is left. That way we were able to cover all the modules. But still we find that even with this approach, all the modules do not take exactly the same time. In our recent training a week ago, we trained on module 7 and found out that it takes much longer than the other modules. And this was partly because some of the concepts that were introduced were not very familiar for all cadres of health workers in these small groups. So facilitators had to do a little more explanation. And yet this module was appreciated for bringing out the aspects of interprofessional education and practice better than many of the other modules do. So we had to make some adjustments there in timing. And then also we found that it's not uncommon for facilitators to pull out on the actual day of the training a few minutes to, say, travel to the training site. And this is largely because we are dealing with these members in academia, these are ministry employees. They have a lot of urgent things to attend to, but we've had backup facilitators lined up, and we in 1 or 2 scenarios we've had to call on this to cover the trainings.
Priscilla, this is great feedback. Thank you so much. You have a couple more thoughts on challenges on the next slide.
Yes, thank you, Mike. And then going through this, the funding mechanism, the reimbursement method has also posed a few challenges because we have, for example, right now, a couple of trainings lined up because as we went to these sites and they appreciated the concepts, they have showed a lot of enthusiasm and have quickly come up to schedule trainings. But one way we are going about this is borrowing funds from the host institution to carry out some of the activities. And then lastly, among the lessons learned is we have found that the partner institutions are requiring that we cater for administrative costs to the universities, which is something we had not budgeted for. So we are still engaging them in discussions, trying to see how to go about this. And maybe our PI, Dr. Semitala, will also reach out to you, Mike, to look at innovative ways to deal with this, because it's coming up. And yet we are realizing that they are considering this as an important contribution to the success of the trainings at the sites.
Yes, certainly. I think this is a great point and one that we should continue offline. The team at UCSF, this is our role, is really to try and help you, overcome these programmatic administrative hurdles. So let's debrief offline. Priscilla, this is very formative and useful feedback. In the interest of time, I'm going to move forward and ask Hofi to speak. If it's okay with you, Priscilla, I'd ask you to stay on the line, and if there are questions at the end, maybe we can circle back to them then. Does that sound okay?
Yes, that's okay.
Thank you so much for your input. Greatly appreciated. I believe we have Hofi on the line from the Sunstripe program. Is that correct, Hofi? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Wonderful.
Hofi,
Okay.
tell us about your experience. Thank you.
Yeah. So we have had two workshops so far. Maybe you could just go to the first slide. That's the picture of the first workshop. There were, if you go to the next slide, it was run in a remote regional hospital. There were we had all to travel by air to get there. There were about 30 attendees, mainly medical students, allied health professions, pharmacists, 2 pediatricians, a family physician, and some senior professional nurses. What worked well at this hospital was that the attendees already worked together as a team in other aspects in the hospital, so knew each other. The workshop was facilitated by the Sunstripe team, which went up to the site to a family physician and infectious disease specialist. Next slide. The second workshop was run at the medical school at University, Stellenbosch University, Tygerberg. And next slide. There were 50 participants, this time final year medical and nursing students, medical interns, professional nurses in their first year after qualifying, doing community service, a few senior professional nurses, and then a number of pharmacists. And the facilitators were again from the Sunstripe team, 2 family physicians, the infectious disease specialists, again, a professional nurse attached to the nursing department at Stellenbosch University. And so the participants were from 2 different universities and urban health facilities in Cape Town. Next slide. So we prepared for the workshops by having a one-day meeting of the Sunstripe team, the facilitators, to adjust the modules to the South African context. And we concentrated on the 4 core modules and modules 5, sorry, I missed out one day, 9 and 16 in addition. We had those modules printed out in a booklet form, one booklet for potential facilitators and the others for the learners. And that worked very well. So they each got a booklet with those modules. We specially arranged for Wi-Fi access during the workshops, especially at the regional hospital, but even at our medical school. One of our facilitators made a QR code, which made it easier for participants to scan in the code and get access to the website. But we had paper-based backup evaluation forms printed. We used and we made available a South African guideline on adult primary care as a resource that we used during the discussions for people to access. And the other articles and resources in the small groups we also had printed beforehand. Next slide. So the facilitating structure was a bit different from what I gathered at Makerere. So for these 2 workshops, we used the Sunstripe team to facilitate the workshop. So each one of us were allocated 2 modules, and we presented and facilitated those modules. And then the small group the other team members of the Sunstripe team then moved between the small groups to facilitate discussions. So the small groups were 5 to 7 participants, with the health professions equally presented in every group. And then after each small group discussion, we ask somebody in that small group to feed back to the whole group, facilitated by that module facilitator. Next. So maybe just to clarify that we didn't run the modules consecutively. Everyone attended every module. Yeah. So as I said, what went well, at the one hospital, the participants knew each other already, and that made it easier in the workshop. The diversity of the participants, undergraduate, newly qualified health professions, the different health professions presented, and also having some senior health professions also doing the course.
Can I just ask you a quick question about that?
Sure, sure.
What was the experience of the more senior people to engage in learning with undergraduates and newly qualified professionals? Did that dynamic work? And, obviously there's an interprofessional piece to that as well, but there's a sort of a hierarchical thing that sometimes can be challenging. And what was that? What was the experience there?
Yeah. I think on the whole it went very well. At times, some of the senior professionals was a bit overbearing and a bit, maybe a bit taking over the group a bit. On the other hand, their experience and practical examples were really very, very helpful. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so the interactive discussions in the groups were really amazing, and the way that the professionals could engage and learn from each other. Like that quote there, seeing how each healthcare worker plays a role in management of HIV in our communities. I think that was really a wonderful experience for the participants, and really I think the aim of this whole Sunstripe is interprofessional education, and that really worked well. I think through the role plays as well, and the small group discussions, participants became aware of that they might at times have judgmental attitudes, for instance, towards people that are interrupting their treatment. And I think that was a big learning in the workshops as well. Maybe just one thing I forgot to put in here, it was very good to have a content expert as well. So we had the infectious disease specialist attending the workshop, and it was very good to have a content specialist that one could refer questions to as well. Next slide. So the challenges, the evaluation form pre and post workshop was really very time consuming. It took at least an hour, and some people couldn't get onto the website and onto the form, and so we had to give paper-based evaluation to them. Some people came a bit late, and then we wanted to start, and they were still busy with filling in the form. So that was a challenge, and maybe one way of doing that was to allow participants to ask participants to just register at least before the workshop. I think the other challenge was there was a wide variety of knowledge and experience in HIV among the participants. As an example, the allied health professionals that attended our first workshop are not actively involved in managing HIV patients from the point of diagnosis, investigation, and medication. And so sometimes they were not, it was not really appropriate, the content that we gave. Although I think they found it good to have some basic knowledge of that as well. So that speaks to my next point, the balance between the theoretical input and the small group professional discussions. So some of the activities are more medically based, while others is more the interprofessional discussion and the management, and to find the balance between those time-wise between those was difficult. Then the group facilitation, there were problems with equal participation between all the members that I mentioned. Time management for us was a big problem, and we didn't stick, because we didn't run consecutive modules. We could go longer with one module and sort of adjust our timetable. And in both workshops, we ended up doing 6 modules while we were prepared to do 7. And I think we on average, we took more than 2 hours per module. And I think that was partly also because the discussions were so rich. And then also allowing each group, small group, to just give a short feedback to the main group, that was also time consuming. So the challenge is more or less modules per workshop. I think that's the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great, Hofi. And look, I think one thing I should say is that, you know, the feedback on the pre-test evaluation is something that the UCSF team are working on, so that other schools don't have to endure such a laborious, time-consuming pre-test evaluation. That feedback has been acknowledged and being responded to, but these other thoughts are incredibly helpful for other schools, just in terms of thinking through, you know, how to manage time, how many modules to incorporate, etc. So thank you. Appreciate your time, Hofi. In the interest of time, I want to give Cyril from UKZN enough time to share the experiences of the UKZN team. Cyril, are you? Let me unmute you. Let's quickly do a sound check.
Hi, Mike.
Can I hear you? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Mike. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. So by way of introduction, for those that don't know Cyril, he's a family physician faculty at UKZN and a key leader in their project, the Switch project. So over to you, Cyril. We're interested to hear about your experience in Durban.
Thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so just to start off, the picture that you see in front of you is all the facilitators with then the lead individuals in the front row in the project at UKZN. Thanks, Mike. We can go to the next slide. So at UKZN, we had 22 facilitators that were chosen and trained. And we had 2 training sessions, happened in September and followed up in October as well. The different individuals who were trained were chosen from different disciplines. And you can see that on the right of the slide. We have 4 pharmacists, 5 doctors, 9 nurses, an occupational therapist, a dentist, clinical psychologist, and traditional medicine biochemist. So in total, we had 22. And basically, the individuals were paired according to their expertise and also interest, based on the different modules that we were teaching. But strategically, we also then included the heads of different programs from the KwaZulu-Natal Department of Health, you know, just to ensure that obviously they would also provide some oversight and a viewpoint in terms of what protocols and policies they're implementing. Now, the training program for the facilitators was run over 2.5 days. And this included principles on IPE and CQI. And then obviously our partners from the Department of Health also just telling us about, you know, the different programs and updating everyone who was there, because it was mainly academics, just to make sure that everyone is on the same you know, platform with regards to the different programs that are run in the Department of Health. And then we also ran just one session, which, you know, when we reflected afterwards, we felt there needed to be a bit more sessions around adult learning. So it's really great Mike, and thanks to David as well for the work that you guys are doing, just to make sure that, you know, the training of clinical trainers is starting to be implemented, because we did find that that was something that needed to be emphasized for training our facilitators. We then also just really focused everyone around saying, well, we're flattening the hierarchy, and that's the whole purpose of this project. And really saying that we want to put the patient at the center of care. And we needed to make sure that all our facilitators were on board with regards to that when we started doing the training with our students. And then obviously we spoke around working in teams and the importance of working in teams and the different elements that need to be incorporated when we're working in teams. And then we gave all the facilitators a chance to actually review the module structure and the content to ensure that it actually fits into the South African content. Thanks, Mike. We can move on. So with regards to the facilitation structure, we started by doing introductory sessions for the students. And we were focusing mainly on the nursing, medicine, and pharmacy students. So these were 2-hour sessions with each of these groups. And we had separated them initially because we wanted to give them an opportunity to, you know, feel comfortable and ask questions before they start to actually engage in interprofessional education and dealing with other individuals that they don't know. But not surprisingly, the students themselves gave feedback that they would have actually liked the introductory sessions to incorporate the other students. So the nursing students wanted the medicine students and the pharmacy students and so on all together as a part of that. But yeah, so these sessions focused on the overview of Stripe, and then we gave them some principles on IPE and CQI. And then we also ran an abridged version of Module 5 and 11 for the students, just to give them a bit of a taster before they get to the intensive training days. And then the students were encouraged to enroll for the full program. And our aim really was a target of 100 students with a ratio of 1:1:1, nursing, medicine, and pharmacy. And we were randomly going to divide these groups into 10 groups with 10 students in each group. And we were trying to get 5 nursing, 3 pharmacy, and 2 medical students in each of the groups. But when it came to the day, so just looking at the right side of that slide, when it came to the day of training, we were expecting 34 medical students, 33 nursing, and 33 pharmacy. And these were students that had signed up and enrolled for the program. But we only received 79 students. And so the missing students, you know, they gave varied reasons for why they couldn't come. So our groups ended up being a little bit smaller on the day. And the day started off with an overview session, which really, again, was just introducing, you know, IPE and making sure that everyone is on the same platform, and just stressing the importance of not having a hierarchy in terms of our approach in the sessions and what was going to be happening, and introducing the facilitators as well as a whole. And then the students did a pre-test evaluation. We ran 11 modules, which were covered in sort of an OSCE style, so objective structured clinical examination style, in the 2 days. So our training was in 2 days, basically. And we standardized the time to 80 minutes per module, with each being duplicated by a facilitator in another room. So we basically had 2 facilitators teaching a particular module on the day. Thus they would see, you know, if we had 10 groups, they would see 5 groups. So the students then rotated through each room. So the facilitators would stay in that room and the students would rotate through each room, and were thus exposed to 5 modules on the day, in day 1. And then the next day they were exposed to the other 6 modules. Thank you, Mike. We can move on. So what went well? So from the students, they certainly were satisfied with the content and structure and the organization of the expertise. So they really enjoyed the different facilitators in the room and the expertise that they brought. They felt that facilitation was, the facilitators themselves were very approachable, which is really great to hear. And just a comment from one of the students was, they said it was so cool to learn from each other. And that's really the whole aim and purpose, and we're really glad to have heard that coming through from the students. But just one thing that they felt could really improve, they said maybe extending the workshop and reducing the hours, because we ran the workshop over 2 days and it was long hours. We started early and finished after 5 each day. The sign up and pre-test as well, they felt could have been done on a different day. They asked us not to focus too much on the content and knowledge, which we found quite interesting. Introducing the training earlier on in the curriculum also came up quite a bit from the students, and it's something that also had been coming up from the 22 facilitators. And also asking us to include other health disciplines, so occupational therapists, physiotherapists, dietitians, as part of the training, because they could see the gap, you know, as they were discussing the different modules, where they felt like those individuals could add value. And then obviously they asked for better communication with them with regards to time and venues prior to them running the workshop. And from the facilitators, they were encouraged by the students' engagement and enthusiasm from the training. They felt that they also got to really engage with softer skills of facilitation. And for many of them, they were reinforced. For some of them, it was new things that they were coming across. But also they needed us to run some more mock runs for the facilitators so that they could manage their time, because time management was an issue. Facilitation skills also came up as a big gap for many of the facilitators. And they actually asked if, you know, we could actually introduce an icebreaker and find ways of actually building rapport with the students prior to actually engaging in the modules on the two days intensive training. And also just to focus more on interprofessional interaction, and obviously resist the temptation to teach the content, you know, but allow the students to actually engage with the content. And then local content was obviously critical, and it's something that they continuously raised. Thanks, Mike. Next slide. So what needed to improve? Again, just a couple of things that were on the last slide was the days, making sure that they're not too long, more time needed to cover the content of the modules, and also the logistics in terms of communication with the students. And from the facilitator side, the structuring of the breaks. And I think because the days were too long, the breaks were really maybe a little bit haphazard in terms of the time. And some of the facilitators felt that, you know, they needed a bit more breaks because the sessions were quite long as well. And then obviously some facilitators felt we needed healthier meals for students. The rooms as well, in terms of, you know, some rooms were small, and there was feedback from some facilitators, and not enough space to be able to do role play, and more time needed for group discussions was also a part of that. Thanks, Mike. And then the last slide really is just, again, top showing you the facilitators, and then the top right picture is showing you the students when they were doing the pre-test in the morning, and you've got some facilitators there assisting them with that. And then the bottom right slide is showing you just one of the modules being done in a room with a group of students and the engagement that was going on there. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks, Cyril. I was fortunate enough to attend the session that Cyril was leading on, and it was a really fantastic, enriching experience. A real privilege to be part of. I'm conscious of the fact that we're at the top of the hour. You guys have busy afternoons. I don't want to keep you any longer. Let me just say four important thanks. Firstly, thanks to Priscilla, Hoffi, and Cyril, also Shadrach, who jumped in at the last minute. Great to get your feedback and to see how Stripe is being unfurled across your institutions. I think everybody else on the call will agree that this is a really exciting moment in this project. And then fourthly, I just wanted to thank all of you who submitted October reports to UCSF. I do understand that's a lot of work to get those reports to us, and we do greatly appreciate all of the effort that you're putting in. It's such a privilege to be partnering with each of your institutions on something as meaningful as this. So let me end there. The next webinar will be in a couple of weeks' time, so thank you all for participating, and look forward to hearing from you and speaking with you over the coming weeks. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, bye, Mike.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone dismissed me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.